Disclaimer: the views expressed on this episode of Perspective Platoon with Prateek are solely the opinions of the host and the guest. The content of the conversation is not reflective of the institutions or establishments mentioned therein. Take all these opinions with a pinch of salt and a dash of lime if needed. Hey Sharon, how's it going?
Hi Prateek, it's going well. How's it going?
Pretty good, pretty good, pretty good. Thank you so much for joining me once again. Before you get started, if you could just let everybody know who you are, what you do, your future aspirations, likes, dislikes, anything and everything you're comfortable sharing.
Sure. Hi, my name is Sharon, and I recently got married, so that's something good for me, I guess. Yeah, for me. I don't
Congratulations.
know. Yeah, thank you. And I currently am a stay-at-home dog slash two kittens mom, so that's literally how my day goes. And future aspirations. I don't know. I mean, I do want a job, but I want to focus more on my family. So, yeah, I would say taking care of my family.
Okay.
Yeah, and yeah, I will work, but that wouldn't be like my only, like that won't be like the only thing I want to do, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
Right.
Right. And likes and dislikes. I like Bollywood movies a lot because I'm Indian, and I dislike politics. Politics is something I think I enjoy very much. Yeah. Yeah, that's about me.
Awesome.
Mhm.
To sort of pick it up from there, I'll just sort of mention this. We did have issues recording initially, so we had to start
Uh-huh.
this again. And we were talking briefly about Tiger King. So I just wanted to expand on that because he said something really interesting about um, the sort of way that we treat humans and how we could possibly or how we should possibly treat animals the same way.
Mhm.
So before we get into that a little more, if you could just share your thoughts on the show and why you feel that the show sort of became more about the characters rather than the tigers themselves.
Uh, just drama, just how marketing works, how you get attention of people. I mean, if you're just showing a video of tigers, it's like watching National Geography Channel, which not everybody enjoys. So I guess they wanted to add in a little bit of spice. So like a little bit of drama, a little bit of, it's like gossiping and a lot of drama and a lot of, did Carol Baskin kill her husband? Did Joe Tiger do that? Did he kill the horses? Is he feeding his tigers right? All of that stuff, And did he? That's kind of like how it got the audience, I believe, because it's just, I don't know, people like to gossip. Everybody does. I strongly believe everybody does. So, yeah.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point.
Yeah.
Um, Before we sort of get into like a little more like a serious topic in terms of the way we treat animals, what was your thought on the other guy, Doc Antle, like Bhagwan Doc Antle?
Honestly, I don't like any of the people on the show. They're just flashy. I don't like flashy. I'm sorry. I mean, yeah, you can be whatever you want to be, but they're just flashy. They have fancy cars and a big house and all pretty women around them. And I don't even know what you're doing. Like, is this like having a wild animal a social status for you? Like, what are you trying to show here? You say you care, but what I see is not that. Like I don't see you care for these animals. I see you more of like showing them off to the world, saying, "Oh, I'm rich. I can own, a tiger. I can own all these exotic cats with me." And I'm like, it just doesn't add up to me in my head. It's like, you want to do good, you can do good. Like, you don't have to have like a fancy bungalow, a mansion. I just said bungalow, that's in our language, but yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
A
totally.
giant mansion with, like pretty women, and, you're paying those women to stay there. And you have people come in and you have these shows. It's basically like a circus to me. Like, it's a in-house circus. Like at your house, not in-house, like at your house circus. Like, you say you're saving them, but it's just a circus. People are still paying it. You have a gift shop, and you're entertaining them with these so-called rescued wildcats, which I don't think they're rescued. They're just tortured more. Maybe they're not, but I strongly believe they are. Yeah. That's what I think.
That's a fair point, because especially like, even though like Carol Baskin did seem like, or at least sort of portrayed this image that she took care of them, a lot of them seem to be in very small cages and things like that. They didn't necessarily roam freely. So how much of what she was saying was actually true. So all of those things definitely sort of are quite ethnic, or not ethnically, but ethically questionable. Excuse me.
Oh, yeah.
The reason why I asked about Doc Antle was because he sort of played this, like, his name itself had the word Bhagwan in front of it, and that initially itself like just put me off, because for those of you who don't know, the word Bhagwan means God in Hindi. So just sort of that sort of air of him associating with himself, or
I just
associating
feel
himself as God. Yeah,
sorry,
go ahead.
sorry, I keep cutting you off. I just feel they're rich people who don't know what to do with their money. That's I don't know if they have an obsession with cats. I don't know. Maybe they do, but it's, for me, it's just a way to show off their social status. Yeah. And Bhagwan, yeah, I'm like, when I saw him, and he has like giant stone sculptures, and I'm like, oh my God, what is this guy up to? And he's like, oh, I do this, I do that for the cats, and Joe Tiger is not. I'm like, yeah, no, you're just a fancier version of Joe Tiger. In my head, that's literally what went on.
Right.
Yeah.
Let us sort of go on to the more serious topic about like the sort of cats and animals and taking care of them. You sort of mentioned in our first recording, until it sort of got interrupted by some internet issues, that it sort of added to your perspective to the fact that people still probably lack the education in terms of being able to treat people better, or not treat animals better, excuse me, and sort of treating them in an equal level. Why, like you said, a lot of it is because maybe it's probably because they're trying to portray a social status, or sort of make themselves seem to be, big people, or whatever else they were wanting to achieve through that. But what do you think will it take for us? And this is a very broad question, I guess, but you can explain it in however you please. What do you think it'll take for us as humans to reach that point where we will actually understand to treat animals equally?
I think we have come a long way. Things are getting better. Like, if we look how, we lived in the 18th century, like people were killed for no reason, hung in the streets, and, all that crazy stuff, which makes no sense. And we are getting better. But if you ask me if it is ever going to be better, I would say no. Because as we humans, for what I've understood, yes, there is a lot of love. People do care about each other. People, like, there is more love and care and help in this world that we can imagine. Like, we might say people don't care, but you fall on the street, there would be someone who comes and helps you. That's just basic humanity. And that is, not everybody might do it, but there are people who believe in good. And let's see, when it comes to, again, this goes back to why I don't like politics, because again, I would like to, there are certain things that just there is more logic to it, but I don't understand it. Maybe I'm like on the surface level. I'm not deeper into what is happening, but I don't understand people fighting for their countries. And I was having this talk with my husband Spencer. We were watching some movie about spies, and I'm like, what is the purpose of having a spy? Like, why would you want to have a person go into another country, spy on them, get information on them, only to go against them? It doesn't make sense. Yes, but he did make a fair point. Like, if we don't have information, we don't know if they're gonna attack us, which is okay. Yeah, it makes sense. But again, you are creating conflicts between two countries. There is no peace, like people don't have peace with themselves. So yeah, there is war, there is constant fighting. And the most common thing I can speak as an Indian is India-Pakistan. It's been there for, I don't even remember, and it's gonna be there for a while, I guess. Peace is important. And there are many things. I mean, the things that are happening with China right now, and things that happened with Trump being president over here. Some crazy stuff did happen in America. And yeah, those are just like little on the surface things that we know through media and news. But yeah, my point coming back to my point is that there is no peace among humans as ourselves. Like, we are so selfish that we want to fight and say we are better than the other. So, when we are not being grateful to one another, how can we treat animals equally? These are the thoughts that actually cross in my mind when I'm like, why are people not helping animals? I'm like, oh wait, people can't be nice to one another. I mean, don't get me wrong, people can be nice to one another, but there's also the selfish side of us. Selfish. I just lisped. But yeah, it's a debate in my head. I'm like, I do like to believe people are good. People do help. They are nice people. But then that's when politics gets involved. And I don't know what happens inside a politics building. I don't know, the White House and the Vidhan Sauda thing that is in Bangalore. But I don't know what happens inside, but it's messed up. It's multiple opinions, and you have to be diplomatic. And that's when things get really messy, I guess. That's when people get messed up. And power, yes, when you are powerful, you tend to be arrogant, egoistic. Don't get me wrong, maybe I'm wrong, not everybody is like that, but that is a thing, right? When you have the power in your hand, you tend to treat people differently. You tend to feel superior to everyone else, and you try to like kind of like a ruler. So yeah, maybe that's, talking to you, I kind of answered my own questions, the debates in my head. But yeah, people can be nice if you choose to be nice. But I guess, as you go and as you get involved with different situations and people, you do change and you want power. And yeah, so yeah, if we humans are literally kind of destroying this planet, and we are going through global warming right now, and it is affected us. And I don't know what's gonna be, the future of this planet. But yeah, the causes and the damage we've done, animals is just like a tiny little subject of all of this. So yeah, when I think about all of this, I don't know when there is going to be, when people are going to realize that we have to be equal. Like, this world was given to all of us equally. Like, early men, cavemen, lived only for 25, 30 years. That was like the longest lifespan they had, because they would get eaten by wild animals, or they would get diseased, or we don't know. But yeah, now we are smart. I hope we use this smartness to doing good, and then rather than evil and fighting with ourselves. But that's just me. Yeah, a lot of people would not agree with me, and yeah, it is what it is.
No, it's definitely a fair conversation to have because a lot of these things, as much as they probably don't matter to us as individuals, they definitely matter as a society in many ways. So it's definitely like I appreciate you bringing that up because we can explore that a little more. But to sort of
Right.
continue on this track of like us taking care of animals and the sort of like you said, people are not necessarily in the best of positions to be able to take care of our own species.
Mhm.
Taking care of animals is a far, far, far
Yeah.
thing away.
Yeah.
Do you think there's also that level of hypocrisy that comes with society? And I mean, this is again, I think I've asked this to somebody else on a previous episode, but I'd
Mhm.
like to get your opinion on it as well. Um, and I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, this if I'm asking this being a hypocrite myself, because I've been a meat consumer for the entirety of my life.
Oh, so am
So
I. But
right.
yeah, this is again, sorry, I cut you off again, but this is
No,
again
you're
a
good.
debate I faced with myself. I tried going vegan for a while. I tried going vegan for a while. It sucked. I hated it. And then again, these debates went on in my head. Like, this is again the circle of life. Even in early days, there are carnivorous creatures, including us humans. We're not completely carnivores, but we do eat meat. We consume meat. So, it you kill for food to an extent. I don't want to sound that, for me again, I don't want to sound like a hypocrite, but that's okay. But I do not encourage killing animals for their fur, for their skin. That's like a big no for me. Like certain things, yeah, the cow that was killed for meat that we eat, that's okay, kind of, in a way. But yeah, again, that's a debate in my head. I need to sort that out in my head, because I did try going vegan. It didn't work for me. And I had this topic, the same conversation with Spencer. Like, all these thoughts that go on in my head, I end up talking to my husband, Spencer, and he kind of gives me the other perspective that makes me think. And he told me that the world is much more cruel than we think. I mean, like the industry where, consumption of meat and, the production of eggs. Initially, I just wanted to quit eating beef, which I am currently on the process of working on it. And I don't consume as much as I did before. So that's a good start for me. I mean, it's not the best, but it's a good start for me. And yeah, I mean, how chickens, the chicken farm works, and how they laid eggs. And I don't want to go get into depth, but there's a lot of pain in, animal suffering. And the same with the cow. A long time ago, I researched about cow milk and how cows are forced to birth their calf so that we can consume its milk. And that milk is not even good for us. That's the best part. It's not calcium like the way they say it is. Like, according to what I read, it's not very, it is nutritious, but it's not the best, because as you humans, you need to consume human milk, not a cow's milk. As cats need to consume cat's milk, not a cow's milk. Cats are lactose intolerant. I learned this recently as well. If you give a cat, like in Tom and Jerry, if you give them milk, they're just going to have diarrhea. They cannot, digest cow milk well. So it's the same with us humans. There are a lot of us who are lactose intolerant, and cow's milk, yeah, might work, but so does almond milk. So does um, oat milk. They work pretty much well. And if you want calcium, there are so many ways of getting calcium in your body. You don't have to consume milk. I'm just saying, again, these are thoughts that happened in my head to me. And I try not to consume milk, but I do like to have milk with my cereal. But I'm trying to slowly switch to oat milk or almond milk. But my husband is like, no, I'm not giving up dairy. So it is kind of hard when you and it's okay for him to choose what he wants to choose, but I have very low self-control. So if someone's doing it with me, I end up doing it. I'm that person. Like there are people who are determined to do it. I'm just not one of those people because, my husband has a big influence on me. And if he's doing it, I will. I mean, cereal, I want milk. I do want to have my milk with my cereal. But yeah, again, I don't know if I'm a hypocrite. I think I am because I do consume milk. I do eat beef, but that doesn't count. For me, I justify it in my head saying that's the circle of life. I don't know. You give me your input on it, but domestic animals compared to wild animals is again a different way of doing things. And yeah, it's not fair. Everything has to be treated equally. I do agree. But wild animals, like I said, the cats, tigers, they are almost going extinct. And I think we need to take some precautions towards it. We need to, try and help and try and, care more about it. Because if one species dies, we don't know what that's going to lead into. Because I don't know, that's just how it is. Like imagine there are no more butterflies in the world, what's going to happen? Are they going to be, there are no insects, then there would be no, what is the scientific term of the pollens being transferred from plants to plants?
The what being transferred from plants to plants, you said? Hormones?
The pollen?
Oh, pollen, like pollination.
Pollination, yeah, that's the word. And if pollination doesn't happen, then how are the plants going to grow? Is there going to be a world? Like that's the big picture, right? So extinction extinction sorry, extinction
okay.
of an animal that is supposed to exist in this world, and it means something. What's that going to lead us into? These are questions. And yeah, I hesitate to say this, but I do consume meat. I do consume milk. I debate with myself every day when I'm doing it, and I watch videos where cows are in pain, and when I see that I cry, but then I just can't stop it. I can't, because again, this is a thought that crosses my mind. If I stop, can I make a difference? I don't, because there are going to be people who are still going to consume it. This process is going to happen. And I also had this topic with Spencer again. Do you think people would ever stop consuming meat? And he's like, no, I don't think that's ever going to be an end to this. And I also like to believe it's a circle of life. But one thing, I wish that it was done better. Like if the cows were treated better, I wish they were treated better. I wish their calves were not taken away from them. The cruelty behind it is a thing that I don't support. But one thing I can say that I am kind of proud of is that I'm working towards using cruelty-free skincare and makeup products. So that's a start for me. At least I don't support. Again, consumption of meat is a part of someone's life. But if you can stop the abuse of animals in other forms, like your beauty products and, I don't know, like leather and fur, that's a start. Yeah, leather, maybe not leather, because it also comes from the same cow that was butchered for your meat, maybe, but other stuff like fur and, things that just don't make sense. So yeah, that's, yeah. That is a debatable topic for me.
Definitely, because that whole conversation of circles of life is certainly a way to just justify it. But then again, I guess everybody has their own belief, right? Because you mentioned that you'd like my input on it. So I won't go on a huge tangent, but to sort of mention briefly, I did go vegetarian for a good 6 to 7 months. I was still consuming milk, but I wasn't consuming any meat. But then, like you, I sort of struggled to where I reached a breaking point and I had to fall back on meat. For me personally, I think I could have continued being vegetarian if it wasn't for if it wasn't for my preference to release stress through eating food,
Right.
because I have that association to where I associate food with happiness, and that part of me being a foodie found eating meat as an escape when I was feeling stressed because of college and like everything
Right.
else that was happening at the time. But I personally do hope to go back to being vegetarian, but I probably first need to deal with my own internal demons in that case. But then again, I agree with the fact that not everybody is going to be able to do that, because we're all brought up differently. We're all used to things differently. Sometimes our bodies have really bad withdrawals if we sort of drastically change the way we eat, and it's going to take a lot of time, or it's not going to work for some people. So that's something that I completely understand. Even though I personally would, even though I would at some point in the future, hopefully, if my health doesn't deteriorate because of it, would like to go to continue being vegetarian. But the circle of life argument makes a lot of sense because of the way that species are on this planet and so on and so forth. But um, the thing that had an influence on me was the Bhagavad Gita, because I read the Bhagavad Gita, and that was sort of talking about meat consumption and the way that we as humans sort of treat animals and so on and so forth. So it was really interesting, and it added to my perspective to where I was like, long term, I would definitely like to go and be a vegetarian, not just because of that, but also for my own health, because I've had arthritis and all that joint pain, and I don't want to feel old when I'm 30 years old. So, I'd rather make the change and see what happens that way. But I guess the larger sort of conversation happens because of the fact that these farm animals or farmed animals are treated very cruelly, like with a lot of cruelty, I guess.
Yeah.
The amount of space that they get, the way that they're bred to sort of give us what we want. I guess all of that is where there's a lot of the negativity associated to meat consumption. Like you said, maybe if it was a little more humane, there'd be a better space for us to be able to openly, consume meat without having to feel a sense of guilt
Right.
for it. But yeah, it's something that'll probably take a lot of time to change, because it's like you said, sometimes it can seem like one person doing it is not going to make a difference. But I'd probably beg to differ in the sense that you're at least trying to make a difference in your own life. And the reason I say that is because a lot of the times we can only change what we have control over. We can't change things that we don't have control over, right? So if if you and I can make that conscious change of, okay, I'm going to switch and I'm going to do this to sort of do my part. You never know. There's somebody else who probably knows you, who's thinking of the same thing, hasn't told you about it, but then they feel like, okay, if they're doing it, I probably can also muster up the courage to do it myself too, and or at least try, and see where that goes. Because sometimes that's the thing, right? Like you mentioned also that you're starting to phase out like cruelty-based products and use more cruelty-free products. That's also a start. A lot of the times we need to take a start somewhere. Will it work or not? That's a results-based thing, which again, we don't have control over until and unless we do it for a certain period of time. But yeah, I didn't want to go into a whole rabbit hole, but yeah, it's sort of like it's a debate that I think everybody who's in that fence has. But I think at the end of the day, as long as you're doing your part in some way or another, and how do I put this? We can't expect everybody to change unless they choose to change themselves. So, as long as you're doing your part, I think you're in a good space.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then again, it takes time. It takes time. It takes a lot of internal debating and understanding and pacifying and whatnot. Because it's a hard change. Like for a lot of us as humans, we sort of associate food with emotion. And, you go out on, I guess, anniversary or something to have a steak dinner because, it's fancy or whatever, that's just a random example. But,
Right.
it's sort of associated to our life in many ways. and
Mhm.
having to cut that out like abruptly is it's a lot harder than one would imagine. So, you know, which is why I sort of also am accepting of the fact that if other people eat meat, that's totally fine.
That is
It's
totally
not the end of
fine.
the
I
world.
mean, it is not, I mean, it's just about being aware of what you're doing. I mean, I would be a hypocrite again if I told like, oh, meat consumption is bad, but I do eat meat myself. Like, yeah, I don't eat steak whatsoever, but I do like to have like a keema cutlet or something. I make cutlets, I make beef cutlets at home, and I love them. They're like the tastiest things I've eaten. So yeah, I maybe if in the future, if I did consider being more serious on this subject, I might, quit red meat, because again, it's unhealthy for your body to consume a lot of red meat. But I will not stop consuming chicken and fish. That's something I think, I mean, again, I am raised like that. I do want to consume meat. I don't want to go vegetarian. I do eat my veggies, and on a regular basis, I do eat mostly vegetarian food. I don't eat meat all the time, but there are days when I want to consume meat, and that's okay. It's like I said, it's the circle of life. But yeah, like you put it out for me, it's the way it's done, and people need to be a little aware of how it's done. And yeah, um, you can consume meat, you can eat chicken, that's okay. Just the business part of, the meat production, that's what bothers me. Like, how they're not treated the animals right, they're misused, they're forced to separate them from their babies. These things just makes me sad. Like, why can't you just give the animal what it wants? Like, I would rather eat beef than I would eat beef and quit milk, for me, because I feel the amount of abuse a cow goes through while giving us the milk we consume is a lot. I mean, when the animal's slaughtered, it's just dead. There's no pain, there's no suffering, but the cow's forced to give birth, the calf's taken away from it. God knows what's done with the calf. Sometimes they say it's killed, sometimes they say it's used for breeding. I don't even know. And when that's done, and you consume its milk, the amount of torture, like, imagine me if I had to be a mother and my child was forcefully taken away from me, only to use me for, whatever they want. It's hurtful. If I had to be a mother, I mean, I'm a dog mother, and I can't even imagine, I can't even have, Didi off my sight for 10 seconds. It breaks my heart. Like, even if I'm outside, I'm constantly thinking about my puppy. So imagine if a human being came out of me. That's painful. And they don't know how to speak, but doesn't mean, a mother's love is any different for a cow, right? And I mean, slaughtering, for me, it might not be justified, okay, but at least the animal is not suffering. It's just put to bed for me. You're consuming it for its meat, but the amount of pain and suffering it goes while you're consuming its milk. Again, this is my opinion.
Yeah,
Personally,
and
people
that's
can
totally
have,
fine.
yeah. So when I read about, the milk and cow's milk and how it's produced, it didn't make me feel very good. And yeah, most times I do have oat milk and cow's milk in my refrigerator, and I do consume both. I'm proud of that. That's a first step for me towards change. But slowly, eventually, I'm pretty confident that I will not be consuming cow's milk, but I will be eating meat. That's
Hmm.
something I don't think I'm going to do, because like I said, it's just a circle of life for me. Yeah.
Yeah, firstly, I'd like to just say, like you said, right, this is your opinion, and that's totally fine. Like I was gonna say that, but you mentioned it yourself.
Uh-huh.
Because I think for us, especially in the age that we live in, it's very
Mm-hmm.
easy for us to get angry at somebody doing something that we don't want them to do. But
Mm.
then I think again, we sort of have to realize that we don't have control over the actions of another person. So if you're gonna get angry at that, And
Right.
sure, I mean, we all get frustrated at some point by something someone does. And this is something that I sort of battled with in 2020, especially like when I was just thinking about my outlook on life, for the lack of a
Right.
better way of putting it. Because I like when it comes to work and working with people, I can be a bit of a control freak. So sort of realizing that um, made me realize that there's no point of me being angry at someone if they chose to continue eating meat and didn't like have this sort of future thought of, okay, I'm gonna go vegetarian. There's no point of me being angry at them because I have no control over it.
Right.
I have control over my anger, but not over what they're doing.
I mean, again,
So yeah, go ahead.
right. Sorry. For me, I know. I mean, I love animals, but I strongly believe that doesn't mean you have to stop eating meat. That's what I believe. Because again, the battle in my head goes like, that is the circle of life. Like, that is how it's done. If you don't, like in the wild, a tiger is going to hunt a deer or a bison or a bull, whatever they find, they're going to eat it. That is how it is. We feel bad, but if it doesn't consume that, what is it going to feed its babies? You know, it's a battle of survival. But what I don't agree with is the way these animals are treated in the process in the factories, like misused, mistreated, misjudged. And they have feelings. Like when I see videos of cows crying when their calves are taken away, they literally tear up, and that makes me sad. Like, no, you want to consume meat, but don't have like, they don't have to be suffering. You don't have to torture them. Again, it's business, and again, it's all politics. Like I said, it gets messy in the process, and I don't know, people just care about making money, that in this process they forget how these creatures, these animals, these fellow creatures we share the planet with feels. Like the same goes with, again, this I'm a hard believer on, breeding dogs and selling them. I am against selling animals. Like anybody who comes and tells me you're going to sell animals, I'm like, no, please don't talk to me about it. That might be your thing and I cannot control it. But I don't believe in selling animals. I don't believe in people having a lab, Rottweiler, or, just dogs. I mean, for me, a dog is a dog. I don't care what breed you are. Same with the cats as well. I don't care what breed they are. If you want to love an animal, you're going to love it no matter what. You don't have to be so specific. Like if you have a child and the child doesn't turn out to be the way you wanted, you're not going to disown it, are you? So why do that with your pet? Like why say, oh, I want this, I want a Bengal cat, I want it to be this a certain way. And I'm like, when I hear things like this, I'm like, you don't need a pet. You just need something for your social status. That's all I can think of. Like when people tell me, this happens a lot in India. I don't know if you've witnessed it, but people want breeded dogs and they pay the breeder whatever money they want to get a breeded dog only for social status. My whole life, I never bought a dog. I've never bought a dog. I've only I've only had street dogs when I was in India. Like all the street dogs, we took them up and we had them in our house, and I would feed the street dogs in the street. And yeah, even my kittens, we got one. I lost one of my kittens recently. She due to surgical complications during her spay, and I was sad for a while. And 6 months later, a friend of ours gave us a kitten recently, and we found out that she had a sister, so we went back and adopted her sister. Now we do pay for adoption, but when I went into that place, I know the money is going to the right place, because that is, they pay for like the insurance of the cats and their vaccination and basic needs of what the kitties need, like food and shelter. And same with the dogs, and that is okay for me when I'm helping someone who's doing something like that. And it wasn't even much, it was like $100. That's not too much. to give to a place that's actually helping these animals. They were rescues, they were found. And all these dogs, they were abused dogs and kittens. And it's nice to help places like that, but it's not like $5,000. Like when you go through a breeder, you pay like $5,000, $3,000. Oh, I have a Swiss Austrian some puppy, and I'm like, what is that? That my dog has blue eyes. It is like this. It is, it's a big dog. It's a fluffy dog. It has a lot of energy. Like, no, you want to love a baby, you're going to love it no matter what. That's literally the thought that goes in my head. And I've told this to a lot of people on their faces, because I will judge someone who is showing off their dog. I will do it. I am sorry, but I am that person. If you are going to come and tell me you got this dog just for its breed and you paid so much of money, you are not a pet parent. You are a person who cares about your social status. And if something happens to that, animal at some point, I don't even know if you're going to love it back. Maybe you will. I don't know. But in my head, I'm judging you and I feel you will not. Yeah, that's just me.
That's an interesting thing. I haven't necessarily thought about it that way, but I'm assuming that you're sort of basically against the way that some people tend to breed certain species together, or like, sort of, forgive me if I'm not using the right words for those of you listening and watching, but it's sort of like they're making these customized animals for people to buy and take care of, is what you're against. Is that correct?
It's not about the breeding. It's about breeding them and selling them for money. I also researched about these breeders. I don't know about here in America, but I know back in India, the animal, the female dog, is abused by the breeder only to, give birth, and they can sell their puppy for like, God knows, 20,000 rupees, which is wrong in many ways. Like, where's the humanity there? And why, I mean, again, it goes back in my head. In India, what I witnessed for a very long time is they want a breeded dog only for social status. They would pay any amount of money to get this breeded dog, whereas there are thousands of street puppies. Like these are questions in my head. If you really want to raise a dog, why would you pay so much money? Why can't you just adopt a street puppy and, take care of it, love it, give it a home, feed it? It wouldn't, it's going to be loyal. It's going to be the same, loyal dog that you would get from a breeded dog. The only thing I'm saying is it's not wrong to have a breeded dog, but you are encouraging the wrong cause behind it. Like, people are torturing and abusing a dog. Like, they're literally forced into, it's like dog rape, if I have to be, put it in a better way. And they have to give it a minimum of 2 years before she's bred again, before a female dog is bred again. But that doesn't happen. They are bred and they are tortured, and they're finally like left with nothing and they're kicked out. That's literally the articles I've been reading about all of these. And one of my friend back in India named Adia, she's an animal activist in India, and she has a bunch of rescues with her. And when she spoke to me about all of this, it just breaks my heart. Like, she has done this for a living and she works with them. And when I read about this and I learned more about these from her, it doesn't matter. Like, why would it matter if your dog is a breed? Like, I don't know. Like, if it does matter to you, like for me, again, it goes back in my head that you only care about your social status. Like, if you want to love a pet, you're going to love it no matter what. Like, even with my cats, I didn't even know cats had breeds. I didn't even know. Like, when we were taking Cece, our pet that we lost recently, to the vet, the vet was like, "What's the breed of your cat?" And Spencer's like, "Gray." Because we didn't know. We didn't know what is, like, cats had breeds. I just thought they were just cats. I still think they're all cats. And I mean, whatever they are, they're babies. They deserve to be loved. They deserve a home. So, whoever's listening, if you agree with me, go get a dog and don't worry about its breed. Or a cat. I do not support people who say I want this Bengal cat or other Persian cat, or it's a cat. You gotta love it no matter what. Why spend money on it? Why make it a business? Like, would you sell a human child? No, right? So yeah, that's just me.
No, that's an interesting sort of perspective, because it's definitely ethically wrong in a lot of ways, like you said, where if a dog is being, like a female dog is being kept in a certain place just to sort of, for the lack of a better way of putting this, I apologize to those of you out there if this is too crude, but if you're going to raise a dog just for it to pump out babies whenever you want it, yeah, it sort of goes back to the ethics associated with that. And for me, when you sort of explain that, it feels a lot similar to the way that like your earlier example of cows being, like the way cows are bred for their milk and whatever. So it's very unfortunate. It's easy to say that, oh, that's the world that we live in, but all we can do. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with you. I mean, yes, it is the world we live in, but you can make a difference when you voice against it. Yeah,
exactly. That was going to be my next point, in the sense that you can do your part, do your bit, and if you can encourage people to do it, then do it. But yeah, do your part, and as long as there's people that are, making this change gradually, I think it does. At the end of the day, if their bottom line is affected, they are going to do something about it. Because at the end of the day, going back to another thing that you said, everybody's just worried about the money that they make. So, for example, if there's this breeder in Bangalore who is sort of put on full blast for knowing to do such a thing, again, I hate to sort of make this seem like we're taking his livelihood away, but at the same time, I think it's sort of an argument of making sure that there's less abuse involved in the process, or no abuse involved in the process, rather.
Yes, I can. That is, again, I will agree. If you do want to do that, okay, yes, I could agree with it. But again, like, it goes against my principles of selling animals.
Right.
Like, the whole money involved with it. It's like, would you sell a human child? Would you sell a human baby? Maybe it happens in some part of the world that I don't know about and I'm unaware of. But again, why would you like buy a puppy? Like, why would you buy a cat? Like, it just doesn't, for me, it's wrong. Like, selling it, it's like slavery all over again, if you know what I mean. Just not with us. But yeah, like, again, I know I convinced myself saying, the world we live in where people don't care about each other, these are just animals. I do debate with myself with this. And another thing is, one thing I respect a lot more in our country is that at least we have street dogs. We do have street dogs, and I see them. I don't see any street dogs in America. Sorry, America, but you don't have street dogs. I don't know what happens to them. I don't know where they are. And this is just me speaking in a human way possible. Like, where are they? And if no one adopts them, they're put down. Why? Like, why are they put down? Kind of thing. And yeah, breeders can be safe, I'm sure. Like, my friends tell me that their breeders are, careful, and they take care of their dog and all of that stuff, which is okay. But then this is, again, I don't know if I agree with it completely, but it is, again, a thought in my head where if your dog has a puppy, why would you separate its mother from its babies? I think about this. I don't know what my answer is, because I don't think there's any right or wrong answer with this question for me. Because, you will be responsible for all of that. You have to take care of all those puppies. And yeah, I get that. But again, separating a mother from its child is something else that, does cross my mind. Like, if we humans have triplets or something, do you want to give away your children? Do you like sell your children to other people? Like, I think about it on a personal level. I don't know why I just get deep when it comes to, animals. But yeah, I don't know. Not everybody has to think the way I think. I mean, my friends, recently, a friend of mine sold her puppy and I was hell bent against it, but I did help her look for people because she had financial problems. I mean, it was against my morals and ethics, but I get her situation. I was against it, but what can I do? I can't force you. Kind of situation, like, yeah, it's whatever. It is. I don't even know how I feel about this whole thing because there's no neutral zone for me, but I don't know. It's a giant I don't know for me. Yeah.
No, I think with what you just said about your friend and sort of helping her find a new home for the dog, it does show that there is some sense of neutrality in the sense, well, I guess neutrality is not the right word, but nuance in the sense that, okay, fine, like, we don't agree with something, but then sometimes in a different person's shoes, it's a totally different scenario to where something else matters more. So, in that case, it probably, again, I'm not too well versed in the topic of like taking care of dogs or having pets because I've never had one. But
Right.
I do feel like as an outsider, if you can give that dog a better home, so be it. Because if a person's finances are going to result in the dog not being treated right, then that's not right either. So I guess like you sort of said, it's as much as it didn't sort of sit well with you, you were willing to do that because she had those difficulties and so on and so forth. So I think with everything that we've talked about, there's always a sense of nuance associated with it, and you can
Probably.
you can always find like uh, an opposing argument or a talking point for everything. Because going back to the sort of breeder thing, now the person is selling them because they want to make money. So, a school of thought. I don't know if I haven't thought about it enough to know if I fully agree with a person, breeding animals and sort of abusing them that way. But it's sort of also a question that sometimes we need to ask in the sense that who are how do I put this? Do we have the right, so to speak, to take away a person's ability to make money? It's,
I mean,
again, it's a different talking point. It's a different conversation to have in that sense. Because there's many ways of making money. It doesn't have to be that way, But yeah, it's just another talking point that I feel like can be brought up in some schools of thought where they're like, at the end of the day, we live in, unfortunately or fortunately, we live in a world which is powered by money. Even if you don't want to live a materialistic life, you need the money to survive. So yeah, it's just an interesting topic to talk to think about, and sort of in our own minds find the thing that gels with us the best. But what's your sort of thought on that? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I do agree with you. But again, for me, I personally think people who are breeding dogs and making their living out of it are just lazy, just freaking lazy, and you don't want to work hard and you want the easy way out. I'm sorry, I'm opinionated on this subject. I am. It might come out wrong on a lot of people, but you can go out, you can get a job. I mean, come on, it's 2021. How hard can it be to get a job? People need people to help them out, and especially in a country like India, if you're talking about in the Indian market, I think there are many labor jobs that we can do. It's just easy, quick money that you can make. Like, imagine there's a litter of 6 puppies and you sell them for 10,000 rupees or 20,000 rupees. You're easily making close to 1 lakh, right? And yeah, that's just easy money. You don't want to work hard. You're just being greedy and selfish. And yeah, maybe if you're a good breeder where you're caring for your dogs, that's another thing. Maybe giving it love and affection and showing it that you're there for it no matter what, that's another thing. And maybe I could be okay with that to an extent. but just the abuse behind it, like for what I've educated myself to, it sounds really wrong. And I'm like, no, I'm not gonna encourage that anymore. That's why I feel people should be more aware of it and stop worrying about their social status, like money. Yeah, it is a way to survive. We do need money, but you don't need money to show off. You don't need fancy cars. I mean, that's again your personal choice. Do it. It's okay, but you know, as long as it's not affecting something else. You want to have a fancy lifestyle, go for it. I will not stop you. That's your choice. But when it comes to these dogs, if you like, let's say I want this particular breed, Australian Swiss blue eyes puppy, I'm like, you are being particular and you're encouraging breeders to abuse animals. Just be mindful of the whole situation behind it. And it's okay if you adopt a street dog. Okay. Worst case scenario, go to you can rescue animals. There are breeded dogs that are equally abused, and like labs or whatsoever, who are not treated right, and you can get them. I'm just saying, if you really want to love a dog, it comes back to my earlier point. You're going to love a dog. Yes, rescues are work, but it's not impossible if you have the time and patience. I'm just saying, Spencer's sister has a dog, Snickers, and he's a rescue. And he's like the most beautiful thing I've seen. And yeah, there are a lot of people who rescue, dogs. And my cousin's sister did back in India. It was a street dog, and she rescued her, and she has her with her right now. My kittens are rescued because they were adopted. Actually, their mother was rescued, but yeah, you get the gist of it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's definitely something that, when someone battles with, I guess it's a sort of question that you need to ask in terms of where your own perspective is in terms of ethics and sort of everything like that when it comes to breeding and selling animals or meat consumption or anything like that. Because at the end of the day, going back to, we've probably beaten this drum enough, but going back to the fact that we can't change everybody, if it's something that you strongly believe in, that's totally fine. We can adjust our lives accordingly.
Right.
But as long as well, now I have a question in my head too, but no, in terms of like a question to sort of make me think as well, but in the sense that maybe this is just our generalized opinions for those of you listening and watching, but sort of going back to these breeders and people who sort of use these abusive tactics to make money and sell these animals. I don't know much about them or their emotional standing or whatever, but to sort of maybe put a different spin on it, do you think a lot of it is also just one, either a result of bad circumstances in their life, or two, more so them being hurt by something in their past, which, there's a saying that hurt people hurt people. Have you heard that saying before? Yeah. So I don't know. It's just sort of a thing to sort of think about in terms of, do you think that these people have sort of gone through a certain event in their life that is leading them to do something like this? Now, it doesn't have to necessarily just be about the breeders, but this could be a broader question expanded to all the ills that we see in the world. This is not necessarily a way to justify what they're doing, because you can never justify certain things like murder and so on. It's wrong.
Yeah, like I said, yeah, there's no right or wrong answer to any question. But again, it comes down to what you believe in, like you said, and what's your faith in. So if you think that is wrong and you are encouraging something wrong, like you have to take a social stand for it. And maybe they are hurt, maybe they have like a damaged past. I don't know. If you do, you need again, I think people need to make therapy a more common thing in India. Like people think therapy is a bad thing, like marriage counseling is a bad thing. That's not bad. You have to have a third person to communicate with you to get a perspective on what you are doing is right or wrong. And yeah, one thing, I don't know if you agree with me in this, back in India, people just take things very lightly and it's not a big issue. I mean, I don't know much about American culture because I've not been here for too long, but I think people are kind of slightly more proactive, not all the way, but slightly more proactive here than back at home. And I don't know, for me, I'm still on the surface level. I haven't really like thought about what the breeders want or what's going on in their head whatsoever. But for me, on the surface level, I just think they're lazy people who want easy money and an easy way out to make a living. But that's just wrong, in so many ways. Like, you don't want to sell animals. Like, again, this is my belief. It's okay if you want to sell animals, like, don't tell me about it. It happens in the world and I have to be okay with it. Just don't bring it to my notice, kind of thing. I've told this to a lot of my friends who've asked me, and I'm like, don't bring this to my attention. Do what you gotta do. Just don't let me know, because I will have an opinion and it might be ugly between us. Yeah. But yeah, selling them, and I don't know. It's just, for me, I'm taking a stand on how I feel, and it's very wrong. Maybe the breeders have their things, but they've been hurt and they want to be hurt. Yes, you've been hurt. Yes, people might hurt people, but also you need someone to talk to, and it's never okay to, the pain of being hurt, and it's never okay for you to put it out on somebody else or an animal in that reason, right? Like, I'm never going to be okay with that. Yeah, you're hurt, you need help, ask, speak, tell people you're hurt, and get help however way, in whatever way possible you want to get help. And again, if you are so hurt and disturbed, maybe this is again in my head, if you're so hurt and disturbed, I don't think people who are hurt would hurt other people. This is my opinion, because if you're so hurt, why would you hurt somebody else? And if you're going into depression, people would rather be suicidal than hurting somebody else. But yeah, I do get that people build their walls up and they get different, but I don't know, I just think that's your ego talking again, maybe. But yeah, it's not justified as right. You have to get help if you're, in pain. And yeah, you might not be a completely bad person, but what you're doing, your actions are definitely not right. So, you should get help and see what you can do to change that. Yeah.
No, that's definitely an interesting point, especially, excuse me, from the perspective of, like, in an Indian scenario more so than an American scenario, of seeking help if you're hurt and not necessarily leading that into affecting other people, and the association of ego with that. Because I think that is one of the major drivers of the fact that therapy is not the biggest thing, or hasn't become there are people adopting it a little more from what I've sort of heard, but it's still not up to the mark at all, because I feel like there's a lot of people that could use a lot of help, and especially kids too. Like, the fact that, I apologize for cursing, but fucking 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds decide to take their lives it's crazy. Like, they require the help that can get them out of that phase where they don't think that the best way to sort of end the trouble is to end their life. But yeah, it's sort of, let's talk about that a little more in terms of sort of the aspect of mental health in India and why it's not being, well, not that it's not being brought to the forefront, but then its adoption is taking a lot longer than, like, the healthy practice of helping people is taking a lot longer than it probably should, maybe. I
Yeah.
know, I understand that a lot of it has to do with generations and sort of people thinking differently from past generations, being like, oh yeah, drink a sip of water, sleep, you'll be okay. It's not as easy as that, but yeah, what is your take on that in terms of like, well, I guess to whittle it down and to boil it down into a question, how much of a role do you think ego plays in the lack of understanding that we all need help with our mental mental being? Yeah.
I totally agree with you, to be honest. Um, our society, I mean, I guess it's changing, but yes, a lot part of India. I don't know much about America, but I think it's much more forward in that form where people seek help and it's okay over here. But I'm sure, there are some issues here too. I couldn't speak because I'm not American. But speaking as an Indian, I do know we have a lot of society, cultural situations where we're held back on a lot of things. And the biggest thing for me is religion. Believe what you want to believe, that's okay, but don't force it on people. Like right now, the current situation where the Hindu Muslim fights are happening, which makes no sense to me. And God, I don't want to say this on live camera, but that I have some opinions about Modi and Trump, and how wrong they are to the world, and how they are not being the leaders they have to be. Because as leaders, people look up to you, people follow you, and you have to lead people in the right direction. India being a diverse country, we have multiple religions and multiple languages, and we have to be respectful of each religion, each person. And I had friends who came to me and argued me saying Modi is right, and I couldn't help it but be surprised. And I'm like, I don't think I want to be friends with such people who support such a wrong cause. For me, like, yeah, I can say it's okay, but I'm not going to brush this up because it's hurting other people. Like, if you are going to support something so wrong, I don't want to be your friend. It's like saying Hitler, oh, what Hitler did was okay. It's never okay. He killed people. He killed people based on their religion and based on the way they looked. And that's never okay. It's never okay to judge, differentiate, and make people feel different for what they are. It's a free country. It's a democracy for a reason. And yes, politics should never get involved in your, religious aspect. Being a politician, you have to be neutral, because your country, wherever, no matter where you go, will have multiple religion, including Pakistan. Hindus might be outnumbered, but there are people who have different religion in Pakistan, and that's okay. You cannot treat them bad, but it does happen. And even in India, Modi is treating people differently. He banned beef, according to the news, what I read, but India is the second largest exporter of cow meat. That's the true fact. And I'm like, wow, Modi, you're a hypocrite. You say you're Hinduism, we don't kill people, we don't kill cow, Gai Mata, right? Gai Mata, like cows, a goddess in according to the Hindu religion. But why are you encouraging exporting cows? Why are you doing that? Like, if you're such a strong believer of being Hindu, and the fact that he treated Muslims so badly, saying you have to validate yourself for being an Indian in India. And a lot of my friends were like debating about it. They're like, oh no, you have to show documents. But imagine you have to show your own documents being in your own country. Yeah, there are illegal immigrants in India. So is the rest of the world. There are illegal immigrants. You don't have to be nasty about it. There are better ways to, handle this subject. Again, my opinion, you don't have to humiliate your Indian Muslim people saying, show me your ID to prove yourself to be an Indian. Imagine that happened to the Mexican people over here, right? Imagine, like, the US government announces saying, oh, we have a lot of, illegal immigrants like Mexicans, Indians, a lot of other people who are like illegally staying here, Chinese, whatsoever. And they go like door to door saying, show me proof for your identification. It's insulting. It is insulting. I mean, I feel that maybe it's a debatable topic for you again, but yeah, it could be a debatable topic, but for me, it's humiliating, and you cannot humiliate your own citizens. And you're creating a destruction among your fellow Indians, which is not okay for me. And coming back to the same subject about, this is the kind of society we live in where people are fighting over religion. You have to have a certain social standards or you're not respected. You have to be, according to what your caste says, because caste is a big thing in India. Woof. But if you're not, you're boycotted or, not accepted kind of situation. And in this, the youth today are facing so much pressure to be something like you have to be a doctor, you have to be an engineer. If you're like even a BCom or a graduate pass, you're not respected enough. And why would you not be respected enough? And it's a way of showing off. Like I said, again, society, society standards of being and trying to please people. We all try to please people, which is okay, but there are some principles you have to have within yourselves. And you need to tell your child it's okay. As long as you raise a good person, it's okay. You can find a way to make a living. You don't have to be educated. Education's not the end of the world. It is good. It is good to have a degree. And you need knowledge over education. That is what is important. And I'm a strong believer of it. Knowledge is key. Education is just a degree. If you don't have the knowledge, what's the point of an education, right? You have to know what you want to do. And I think that's what young people suffer these days with, And one more thing I want to add, because I was having this conversation with my friend back in India, is how kids today are getting depressed because of social media and all these, ideal images of these influencers trying to look pretty. Like, appreciate yourself, appreciate the people around you, be a good human being, learn to love yourself, learn to love people around you. It's simple, but it starts from within you. And yes, family plays a major role, because I know as an Indian, a lot of families do love their kids, they do support their kids, but it also comes back to your friends, your relatives, your mostly relatives, because they play a major role. I don't know, like, it's a love-hate relationship with them. Maybe there's love, maybe there's not love, but there's constant judgment between you and your cousin who's almost your age or your age. And oh, he's doing better, you're not doing better. And I'm like, why would you do that? That just brings a child down. Like, you're mentally traumatizing that child, like, by comparing it. You have to, as parents, I mean, I'm hoping the generation from us is different, but I do believe like some parts of rural India still are in the backlog. It's like, oh, by 2021, finish your education. By 25, have like a master's degree if you have to, get a job in an MNC. And by like 27, be married. Like, later than 27, you are old. You are old, my friend, if you're, later than 27 to being married with someone. And you will not get rishtas. Rishtas are marriage proposals. And these things, which is okay, but also like, what if that person doesn't want to be married? That child doesn't want to be married. Like, that person wants to take his or her own time, her own speed. Like, even that's okay. And people need to normalize people trying to take time to figure out what they want to do, because it's, again, an individual. Yes, family is important. I'm a strong believer in family being important and they playing a major role in your life, but also it's the individual's life. That person has to live for 70, 80 years. You are not going to be there till the end. So let them make decisions, let them fall, let them make mistakes, let them crash, let them pick themselves up and figure out what they want to do. And when they're ready to be married, they will be ready to marry, right? And don't forcing adding society pressure is just gonna disturb the thoughts of a child. Like it's adding pressure. The same with the education system, right? Like in India, there are a lot of movies about this. I don't have to really stress on this, but it's like you have to be getting straight up A grades. If not, you're good for nothing. And they'll compare you to like friends, someone's son who doesn't, you don't even know. But yeah, it's the society pressure. Like, why can't we just stop and accept and love? Like love is like literally the entire show. My only thing has been love one another, stop comparing, and show gratitude, be humble, try your best to do good towards this world, and things will change. But yeah, I really want to know what's your opinion on the entire our society, because it's a very wide topic for us.
Definitely, yeah. There's a lot to unpack there in terms of what you sort of shared. But, well, I guess let's start with the mental health aspect of it and the influence of like our relatives in society. I think at the end of the day, all we need to realize is that as a parent, you want to see your kids happy.
Mhm.
As a relative, this is a question you need to ask yourself. Why are you so worried about what your brother's son is doing? Do you care for them to be happy, or is this just a status? Is this just a status-related question? Sort of, I guess that's a question that people need to ask themselves in that perspective. Because why do you bloody care? Like, that is my first question: is that why does it matter? Like, see, again, I have relatives who've cared for me and I love them to bits. So, it's not like every relative is that way, because there's a lot of people who are also accepting. So I'm not saying that you generalize, but I'm sort of putting that out there because it's very easy to generalize. So this is our intention for whoever's listening and watching. Neither of us are trying to generalize necessarily, but we're just sort of sharing an overall perspective on it all. So please don't feel infuriated if you're listening and sort of wondering about the things that we're saying. But going back to that, I do feel like, firstly, to sort of tackle the marriage question in terms of caste and all that sort of stuff, at the end of the day, like, it's an individual's choice. If they feel that they'd like to marry within the caste, nothing wrong with that. That's,
Yeah.
as long as you're making a choice that you think will keep you happy, so be it. But I think the sort of unnecessary external pressure that comes with it is probably something that we could do without.
Right.
Like, again, if you feel like, now I'm a Shetty, for example, I'm of Buns caste. If I want to get married within the Buns caste, that is fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with necessarily getting married within your caste. I think the problem is that we add this sort of pressure of the fact that that's the only way that it should happen.
Right.
And unfortunately, because of the world we live in, it's not going to be that way.
Yeah.
It's just a lot harder to sort of expect that of everybody. Because then again, I think it becomes a question of expectations, and your expectations for your offspring and your sister's offspring and your brother's offspring and all that sort of stuff. So it's a lot of those questions also that people need to genuinely ask themselves, I personally think, in that aspect of marriage and getting married within the caste and all that. Again, I've probably said this for 100 times already, but if your choice is to marry within the same caste, fine, no worries, as long as you're happy. But if somebody chooses to marry outside of the caste, so be it. Like, why are you increasing your blood pressure because of it? That's something that I find really weird, is that at the end of the day, you should be more worried about your own sanity, right? Like, why are you trying to get angry at every single thing that's out there? And this applies generally to even the things that we see, be it on social media or in the real world, but that's just my own personal opinion about it, is that there's no point of Yeah, again, going back to what I said earlier, there's no point of there's no point of being angry at something that you have no control over. Like learn to accept it even if you don't agree with it. In terms of like everything, I guess. But to sort of transition more into the politics thing that you talked about, I honestly have reached a point, and I think I've mentioned this. I can't remember if I mentioned it on air or have I not, but I feel very indifferent about Indian politics because it's it's funny because in a lot of ways, right? Like some of these people who portray that all of what a certain political party is doing is based off principles of Hinduism. Being a Hindu, and again, I'm not going to say that I'm knowledgeable about the Bhagavad Gita because there's still a portion that I haven't finished and understood fully. And I'm someone that wishes to go back and finish reading it, or not finish reading it, and read it again and finish reading it. But it talks about how we shouldn't be taking other people's lives because that affects us as people too, in terms of the concept of karma and action and all that sort of stuff, right? Like killing people is bad karma, to put it simply. So why is killing somebody, even if they're of a different religion, something that can be justifiable in this scenario?
Right.
It's just a question that I feel people need to ask themselves. Again, this is in no way sort of my intention to attack you for your political party of choice. Ask yourself this, because I think you need to know to justify your choice. Just because, sure, like some people may believe that he's bringing in this or that or whatever, but you can't necessarily ignore the things that are happening in the background, especially in a case like this. Because I guess maybe this also goes back to the topic of hypocrisy, but imagine the same thing happening to you, or say an Indian, like you mentioned. Like if Biden was to one day knock on my door and be like, get the fuck out, I'll have to bleep that. But if he's like, get the hell out of my country, are my people going to be happy about it? No. So, I think it's more than anything, I think people lack the ability to ask themselves some really hard questions about the choices that they make. Now, you're not going to know the answer to everything at once. And I accept that. And I understand that. You're not going to know what is right and what is wrong right away. Excuse me. It's going to take you a while to sort of digest all of it and build out your principles, for the lack of a better word. But yeah, like religion in itself is quite a hot button topic. And I don't want to rub anyone the wrong way, but I personally do feel like there's a lot of similarities between all religions. It's what makes it different is our way of is our interpretation of it. There are certain schools of thought, not certain schools of thought, but if I'm not mistaken, I've probably mentioned this before also. I do have a goal of wanting to read the Quran and the Bible as well, because I want to see like what the similarities are between that and the Bhagavad Gita. But if I'm not mistaken, I'm going to generalize for the other two and sort of state this from my one sort of incomplete reading of the Bhagavad Gita. So take this with a pinch of salt, those of you out there who are listening. But I do feel like these books do tend to talk about forwarding the principle and, making that the world message and etc., etc., etc. But then it also talks about not killing people and like affecting people. And I'm sure even the Quran or the Bible talks about sin in terms of murdering people and so on and so forth. This is just from an outsider's perspective who hasn't read those two books. So it's sort of like a question again, like, what is with that double standard associated with it? Like, even, for example, people hear stories of a certain people from, to not make this seem like we're attacking anybody, I'm just going to use X, Y, and Z as religions. But say somebody from religious X kills somebody from religious Z in one country, and say somebody from a religion, Z, is killing someone from religion X in another country, because your faith states it, I don't think makes it right. Because your faith also states that you shouldn't kill people. So it's just my sort of take on the fact that I do feel like at the end of the day, we're all praying to the same thing, but the way we see it is we see a different thing. I guess that didn't explain it well, but I do believe that there is just one sort of entity, but then we all just worship it a different way. And again, there's nothing wrong with that, if you wish to go to a church and pray, so be it. Mosque, so be it. Or temple, so be it. I think the problem is the problem comes when we start to sort of impose our beliefs on other people, and more so impose our interpretations of these so-called beliefs on other people. Because which one do you prioritize more? Do you think it is right to kill people just because they don't believe in what you believe in? Or do you think it is, or do you think it's the other way around? It's all of those sort of questions I think people need to genuinely ask themselves. Because I've seen people talk about it, and I'm not going to say any names, but I've seen people sort of mention, yeah, this should happen to them, or, that's the right thing. I'm sort of mimicking weirdly, but, it's so, it's sad that it makes me laugh, but I just don't get it. Like, it's a level of double standard and hypocrisy that we sometimes don't tend to see, which is why, again, like, you're not going to change the world in one day. So I feel like for whoever sort of feels strongly about something, I guess it sort of comes down to asking yourself those questions about, is he actually right to do what he's doing, or what he's sharing, or what he's sort of telling his people to do, be it someone like President X, President Y, or President Z, or Prime Minister Y, XYZ, whoever it may be. Yeah, which is why I try to stay away from, I don't mind talking about politics, but I don't try to like indulge myself too much in it, be it Indian politics or American politics, because at the end of the day, I think people need to realize there's a lot more similarities between us than we realize. I said the word realize too many times over there, but at the end of the day, we all want to be happy. We all want our lives to be secure in terms of our health, and make sure that we are making money, and etc., etc., etc. Don't sort of feel like you have the power to wield a sword and slash someone's neck just because they believe in something else. I think that's all it comes down to at the end of the day, is because we have this very inbuilt mentality of, oh, you're either with us or against us. If you're of religion X, then fuck you. If you're of religion Y, then, screw you. And all those sort of things. I mean, it's just very trivial, and it's very sad. It's a sad state of affairs, but I guess it can start from us genuinely asking ourselves these questions of our beliefs and why we trust these politicians, and etc., etc., etc. Because also going back to the example that you mentioned about beef, like, I guess a comparable argument to that would be the sort of gun lobby in America. Like, America probably makes a lot of money out of the guns that it sells. And while party X might be like, no, we're totally against guns, so on and so forth, behind the scenes, for sure that they're making money from somebody who's a part of this major gun machine. So it also goes back to the aspect of money and following the money to sort of know why people tend to make some of these choices from a more political sphere. Because it's sort of like a thing where they're all hungry for power, grabbing power, and etc., etc., etc. Yeah, it's just a sad state of affairs. And to sort of go back on the whole topic of ego and all that, I think that's probably one of the reasons that there's a lot of ego, because we think that what we believe in is right, which may be right for me, but this person next to me doesn't live the same template of life that I live. So that doesn't necessarily make it right for him,
Right.
So it's all those sort of things that I feel like we need to just ask ourselves those questions. And again, you're not going to change the world in a day, but ask yourself these questions and then sort of make your judgment before you go on and share a whole WhatsApp thread of why Prime Minister Y or Prime Minister Z or President X or President Y is right for what they're doing.
I mean,
Because, yeah, go ahead.
no, sorry, you finish.
No, I was just going to say, like, I was almost done there. I feel like I'd go into a longer rabbit hole if I continue talking, but it's, again, just ask yourself some questions and realize that you will not always be right. You might be right in your own eyes, but you're not always going to be right in the eyes of the person who lives next door. And that is okay. That's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to add to your point, yes, we do have to ask ourselves before we talk about people, like especially politicians, people with power. But what does bother me and what makes me think that their actions are wrong is the fact that they are not being neutral in their power. They are favoring, they have favoritism. They have favoritism going on, and encouraging people in that category to say it's okay to do what you're doing, which is not okay. Like as leaders, like I said, uneasy lies in the throne. So you have power, you have the power to make and destroy. So you have to be careful with what you are doing. You have to, you're a leader. You have to lead the people in if it's unity and diversity. Like we learned back in India, if you remember, unity and diversity was like, I remember this. It was like literally in all our textbooks. And humanity above all. I don't care what religion you are. I will respect you. You believe what you want to believe. You're an atheist, I will still respect you. You're not atheist, you are religious. I have all sorts of friends, like literally all. Like I have like the most religious person to an atheist. And I have people in between. And that's okay. You can be what you want to be, as long as you are not enforcing those beliefs, your personal beliefs, on other people. Like again, people do need to understand that there is much more than religion, which is humanity. Like it doesn't matter what you do or what you believe if you're not kind to your brothers and sisters. You have to be kind and you have to give people love and affection. Like that's what it is. Yeah, we'll have general arguments. I also have arguments with people. No one's perfect, but that doesn't mean you have the right to go slaughter someone. No, that's never okay. That's especially based on surface level subjects like religion and race and other things. It's just stupid. And when people are fighting over stupid things, it's just like, what are you doing with your life? Like, what are you doing with your life? Like, there is much more to life than slaughtering someone for their religion or their race. There is much more to humanity than this. And I know people can do much better. And coming back to the kids, I totally agree with you. It's your choice to marry of your choice. You want to marry in your caste, good. You want to marry outside your caste, good. But people are going to have opinions. That is just how it is going to be for a while. I mean, I'm sure it happens here in America too. So India, come on, it's much more worse there. Not worse, but it's just culturally very strong. I wouldn't call that culture when you're forcing someone to, brushing it under culture. I hate that. I hate when people are just brushing everything under culture, saying, it's justifying certain actions, saying, oh, this is how Indian culture is. I'm like, no, there's much more to Indian culture, and stop brushing it and making it look like it's a bad thing. Like forcing people to marry in their caste and saying, oh, it's our culture. No, it's not. Our culture shows to respect people. Like if you want to go to culture, understand what Hinduism preaches, understand what Islam preaches, like what Buddhism and Christianity. It's
these books literally mean the same thing. Like you said, I never read any of these books alone, although I'm a Christian myself. I've never read any of these books completely, but I've had friends who have read all of these books, and it preaches the same thing. It's the goddamn same thing in every book. Sorry to say that, but yeah, it's like love, respect. But no, you want to pick up all the, things that were written in like the, God knows when, like 14 BC, or I don't even know when was the Bible written, and say, oh, this was written so you can treat people differently. No, things, you have to evolve and change with time. You have to understand that humanity is more. Like, if you kill one another, what are you going to do at the end of the day? Like, you think you're going to go to heaven? Like, I again, this is another thing. I don't believe in heaven or hell, but still, what's the purpose of this? The whole purpose of, like fighting over religion for me is trying to go to heaven or hell, right? But if you're killing someone, you're going to hell. You are not going to heaven for sure. Like, if you're killing someone, I don't care if they're from a different religion. No, according to any of these books, I don't think any religion encourages you to kill the other person, right? Like, same with the whole Hindu-Muslim fight. Like, if you're fighting over religion, but what's the purpose? You're still going to hell. Like, if you're killing someone, you're going to hell. That's literally my take on this. And with the whole kids and having a choice to do what they want to do is very important to understand. Like, this is one thing my friend told me, like when she had to get married, her dad, she's a Muslim, so I'm not going to take any names or anything over here, but her dad was like, you can find anybody you want to meet as long as he's Muslim. And she told her dad, should I go looking for a partner with a checklist? Like, oh, Muslim check, oh, engineer check, oh, this check. And like, I can't find love like that. There's no checklist for love. And it made a lot of sense when she said that. I'm like, oh yeah, it does come down to a checklist at some point, and how you have to find someone in your own religion, your own caste is surprising to me. And most parents are understanding these days. I would like to believe that because I've seen it, but I don't know. I'm sure there are parents who don't understand. And but again, like it goes back to, is your child even ready to get married? Like, when you reach a certain point of age and you feel this marital pressure, I can speak about this because I felt that too. Not saying anything, I love my parents very much, but they spoke about me getting married for a while, and they never forced me because I was here. They couldn't really like hold on to me, but I know like my friends went through it, and it is a thing in our society. And after that, it's about the pressure to have kids. But why can't it be a choice if you want to have a child? Like, why is your family getting involved? Why is your in-laws getting involved? Why is your in-law saying you can't bear a child? This is a topic too, right? Like, your in-laws get, not everybody, again, there are good people. I like to believe people are good. But this is a thing. If you can't bear a child, they call you names, and it's so disturbing. It's okay if you don't have a child, and motherhood is not for everybody, and nobody should be judged for not wanting to have kids. It's okay if you don't want to have kids, and that should be an option. Like, acceptance is something I feel people need to learn. Accepting something that is different for them. I mean, again, accepting has to be, how do I put this? Yes, you have to accept certain things, but you have to also know the difference between right and wrong, like black and white. You have to know the difference. You have to accept certain things, but there are certain things where you can say no. Where it becomes an issue, you have to raise, like killing someone, that's never okay. And you should say no, that is never okay, no matter what your religion. But accepting the difference, like, oh, you're a Hindu, you're a Muslim, I will still be friends with you. I don't care what the politicians or what the world has to say about, the situation. The same with the race. the race situation that's happening. It shouldn't matter like what, race you are or what color you are. None of these matter. None of these are above being kind and being human. So that is something I want people to, be more kind and understanding about. And I do believe, I'm a strong believer that most people are kind and accepting, but sometimes you do get messed up in the head, which I think is being human and confused by our leaders. So that's why going back to, our leaders, they might not be completely at fault, but they are at fault because what they say is what people do, and you are leading people into the situation. Uneasy lies in the throne. Like I said earlier, your words is gonna be a part of someone's action. So be wise about what you have to preach to the congregation. And that's literally what I have to say. And with the relatives being involved, yes, relatives are nice. Not everybody is bad, but I think Indians love to gossip. Hell yeah, I like to gossip sometimes. I'm not gonna lie, I do enjoy a good talk, but again, it has to be the truth. But yeah, anyhow, we like to talk, and I don't know why people have satisfaction of putting someone down, like even with relatives. If you're not doing very well in life, oh, they're not successful kind of thing. Like, as I feel, as parents, as older people, as uncle, aunts, whatsoever, you need to be supportive of the child, as long as the child is not doing anything wrong, like drugs and all. No, don't support that. I will definitely agree with that. No drugs, no missing out on school and things like that. Yes, that I will definitely support. But also, things I have learned over time is that being strict with your kids might work, but it's not very effective, because your kids are gonna be scared of you, are not gonna speak to you, and are gonna hide things from you, and gonna anyways do what they have to do behind your back. They're going to be influenced by company around them, I don't know, good or bad, and that is going to play a role. So be friends with your children and talk to them and guide them. Yes, you have to discipline them, that is important, but also trying to have a conversation, having them open up. Like, as kids, we are very insecure about a lot of things. Like, I know I was a very insecure kid back in school. Like, when I was little, I had a lot of insecurities, and that's how babies are. So you have to help them overcome those insecurities as parents, and not just yell at them and tell them this is how you have to be, kind of thing, and this is what you have to do, and gossip about other people's kids. Like, I feel that's the shittiest thing as an adult you can do to a child, saying that child is not good enough. That's a child, come on. It's a baby. Like, you are what, 40-50 years old, and I'm probably I don't even know what you do in your life. Like, are you even successful? What are you doing? Like, no, not everybody, like I said, but there are people. It's a topic. Like, if no one's good enough as their son, I get it, your baby is your baby, but don't shit on other kids. That's just wrong. Don't make them feel miserable. Don't compare. Like, every child has its own speed, and every child has its own dreams and aspiration. It might not be good as your kid, and that's okay. We have to love. Like, again, I don't think I can stress enough on this. Love is the kindest language you can speak, and just be nice to one another. Yeah. And yeah, there's like, I can go in depth about this topic because I've had some personal experience with religion and difference of religion, but I don't know if I should be talking about this on your YouTube channel. But again, it goes back to, like, my brother's wife is Muslim, and although they both don't believe in religion, it played a major role during the wedding. And I love my parents. I think my parents were okay, but the society and, what people will think, their opinions matter so much that it influenced, how my parents actually thought for a while, and it's sad to know that, like people around you actually play play a role in what you decide for your child. And it's surprising for me. I mean, as a young girl in her early 20s who was like, don't know, don't care kind of attitude, I don't think it really mattered to me. But yeah, people care about their society, their church, their people. And yeah, we all have our circles and we all want to be approved. We all want to be liked. But again, principles, your standards, where you take your stand on, that matters even more to me on a personal level. So yeah, that's why I personally don't believe in religion just because of what's happening around us. Religion's just a concept of people dividing themselves among each other. Like, you want to believe in God, you believe in God. But yeah, I'm not going to be disrespectful of anyone who wants to be religious. I have, like I said, most of my friends are religious, and that's okay. You do what you want to do, and that's okay. But I just don't want to do that. And if you can accept me for that, and that's okay, right? And just be kind, be whatever you want to be, but don't differentiate or treat other people, other religion differently. Like you said, if you're really religious, if you're the right religious kind of a person, you will respect the other religious people or whatever. Like, humanity lays above all. Yeah.
No, that's a very good and powerful note to sort of close this section of the podcast on, because I totally agree with everything you said. Excuse me. It's unfortunate that we're in this current state, but I think as long as we can realize that humanity and love matters a lot more at the end of the day, I think things can change, and I'm hopeful that they change, even though sometimes I remember someone saying this to me in another recording that I had, but I sometimes it can feel like we're just about to be doomed as a world and as a society, like we're just heading south instead of heading upwards. But I'd like to personally be hopeful and keep a positive outlook, in the sense that it's not the end of the world as long as someone is consciously willing to make a change. And in their own life, you don't have to necessarily go and make all your neighbors believe in what you do or everything like that, but realize that it's okay to be different, and don't encourage activities that can affect someone's life intentionally, because things happen unintentionally too, and that's a whole another can of worms that we can probably talk about another time. But it's sort of like realizing those differences in terms of knowing what to accept and being okay with it, but at the same time also sort of knowing that there shouldn't be certain lines that should be crossed. So yeah, but at the end of the day, just to reiterate what you said, humanity matters and so does love. And yeah, with that being said, thank you so much for sharing everything that you did. And the fact that we sort of went into many of these deep topics, I'm really appreciative of, because it's not that often that people are willing to have a conversation like this. So I'm glad that you were comfortable enough to talk about it. And I've talked about it in other episodes as well, but I'm thankful to you for being able to sort of just share your opinion. And I think at the end of the day, having conversations like this, even if people don't necessarily agree with what we've talked about, will go a long way than just being angry internally. Because then neither of us are achieving anything, if you're just angry at each other, but then not necessarily talking about it and sort of figuring things out, or hashing things out. But yeah, thank you once again, Sharon. I appreciate it. We're going to transition into the word association game called Bish Bash Bosh. You might hear some background noise, and I apologize for it. But anyway, basically, in Bish Bash Bosh, I give you 5 different words, one word at a time, and you have to respond to each word in either 3 words or in 3 phrases. So, for example, if I was to say love, what are the 3 things that sort of call out to you when I say the word love? That's sort of like how this goes. And it can be anything. The first things that sort of come out to you is you're sharing. Or if you want to think about it, that's totally fine too. You don't need to necessarily justify everything you say, but if you want to justify it, feel free to. Nobody's here to stop you. But yeah, that's basically the gist of it. So I will give you 5 different words, one word at a time, of course. And after that, there'll just be 2 more questions and we should be good to go. But do you have any questions before we start this round of Bish Bash Bosh?
No, I'm good. Yeah, I'm actually glad we had this conversation. I think we jumped a lot of subjects, but it was pretty nice. You know, it's rare that I can have these kind of deep conversation with people. So it's not, I'm happy that we could do it today. And I don't mean offense to anybody if I did say anything wrong. But that's just me and my beliefs, and you can be you, and I will love you as long as you're nice to me. You know, it is. Yeah. I'm human. I'm not perfect. Nobody is. So if I'm wrong to somebody, if you feel offended or if you feel I'm wrong, please correct me. And I would happy, like Prateek would let me know if I'm wrong in any way possible, and I will work on it on, you know, on my daily life on aspects. Yeah. But apart from that, it was really nice conversations we had. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. So yeah, let's go into the word association game, Bish Bash Bosh. The first word is, sorry, I don't know, I lost my train of thought over there for a second. But the first word, there we go, is differences. What are the 3 things that sort of call out to you when I say the word differences?
Differences, it's okay. It's life. And acceptance, I would say. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What are the words that pop up into your head when I say the word nuance?
New ones? Like new one?
No, like nuance, basically NUANCE, which basically sort of means like the fact that there is more than what meets the eye. This is just a generic definition, excuse me. But it's sort of like, it's not just black and white. There's a lot of gray. There's a lot of overlap that we don't see, sort of thing.
Sure. It exists. I don't know how I feel about it, but I have an uneasy feeling on my chest when I hear something like that, because I like to say there's black and white. And yeah, okay. I'm sure there's in between. And certain situation, I will agree in betweens, but I don't know how I feel about it. It's just a little uneasy on my chest at this point.
Okay, yeah. That's totally fine. That's okay.
Yeah.
The third word is learning. What are the 3 things that sort of call out to you when I say that?
Oh, learning. Learning is definitely a part of life. I'm learning each day. I learned a lot from my husband after I got married about certain things, different perspectives on life. It is very important. It need not be your textbook. You're learning in every part of your life. I do believe that. Yeah. And everybody, we make mistakes. Be kind to yourself and learn that, accept yourself the way you are and trust the process. That, you know, just the fact that you know you made a mistake is enough to know that you are growing as a person, accepting the way you are. And you don't have to like guilt yourself into saying you're a horrible person. You are accepting, that's more than enough. And be kind to yourself, forgive, you know, move on, step forward, make sure you're doing your best in the future aspects of your life. Yeah.
Beautiful. The fourth word is empathy.
Empathy. Oh, very, very important. I think you should emphasize, be empathetical. Okay. Empathetical towards everybody as much as you can, and every living creature, I would say, like, try to be nice. And like I said, I have friends who are not animal lovers, and that's okay. You don't have to love, like, animals. You're not used to it, but they have been, empathetical towards me when I lost my cat, and with my dog when she got sick recently. And I appreciate that, like, a lot, like them reaching out to me and telling me it's okay. It means just so much to me, just that they understand me. So understand one another, know that the other person is going through stuff. I am not perfect. I do make mistakes with this, but apologize if you feel, if it's needed to. Like, keep your peoples closer to you, and yeah, you'll have difference of people, and you'll have people you don't want in your life. That's okay, but always be kind to one another. Don't ever carry hate in your heart. Not worth it.
Beautiful. And the
Yeah.
last word for this segment is Bish Bash Bosh, is learning. Or not learning, excuse me, I already said that. Similarities.
Similarities. It is good, but it's not the only thing. It's not the end of the world. You can be friends with people you are not similar with. You can, have difference of opinion and still appreciate one another. Again, it goes back to acceptance. Love, like I said, is important. Similarities on certain levels is important. You don't want to be on the same wavelength on people who are just hitting on others and want to be a horrible person. No, but it's okay if you're not similar at the same time. I would definitely say it's fine. People are different. Everyone's different. Like you stressed earlier, acceptance is important, like accepting people the way they are. And yeah. That's
Awesome.
I think, yeah.
Cool. That's a great way to close this segment off of Bish Bash Bosh. Thank you so much for playing along. Just two more questions. Well, last one's not really a question, but the penultimate question is, how do you relate to people?
How do I relate to people? On a various level, to be honest, I'm human. I don't like certain things. I just talk to my husband. Like, I'm human. I've made a lot of mistakes, and for most of my life, I had ego problems. I was judgmental on other people's opinion, but I think it's because I married Spencer. He's awesome. He's wonderful. Like, I can't stress enough on how much I learned from him and grew from him. Because I remember this one time I had issues with one of my girlfriends back in India, and I'm like, I think I want to unfriend her, like get her out of my life for good. And he gave me this advice. I still tell all of my friends, like, if anyone comes to me for advice, I say this is, like, why are you giving her the power to control your emotions? Like certain things, if that is affecting you, you're letting their opinions affect you. You believe what you want to believe and do as needed. You don't have to befriend anyone. You can continue being what you want to be. And yeah, that person might not be a most important part of your life, but it is life, like you grow, you learn, you grow. And I do believe I've come a far way, and I'm proud of what my process has been. I'm not perfect. I don't think I'll ever be, but it's the process we have to trust and we have to grow. I have met people with difference of opinion, and I have sometimes even now don't accept what they have to say, but all I can say is okay and support them and let them learn, give them the time to, because I can tell you once, but it also depends on what you have to, how you see these things. Because my advice is only an advice if you don't take it. It's just words coming out of my mouth. So, let people be, let them, make their mistakes and let them learn. That's literally what I have been. Again, these are just little things in your day-to-day life with people involved in your life. You don't have to go crazy. You don't have to be angry. There's, like you said, you can't control things and you can't control people. So give them your best advice, and let's just hope and pray that, they do good for themselves. And maybe your advice may not be the best. I mean, they find a better solution, and that's okay too, right? So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more. You sort of answered the last question with that answer too, but
Okay.
I'm going to ask anyway, which was basically like, if you have any positive thoughts or positive quotes that keep you going every day as a person, is there anything that you would like to share with everybody who's listening and watching? And just because you've shared quite a lot already, if you can think of something else that you haven't said, yeah, feel free to share that. But that's it. That was the last question.
Something I would like to share. This is a battle that I also fought with myself for like a while, like the image, like I told you, the image of social media and how to be perfect. And as a girl, it did bother me. I will not gonna lie. And, like when I look at beautiful girls, skinny bodies and flat stomach and like the perfect nose, I'm like, why can't I be like that? And it took me a while. And my husband, for me to realize it's okay. I mean, you are beautiful the way you are, men and women, and you don't need validation. Just accept yourself the way you are. And now I carry myself with so much confidence that I don't care if someone calls me ugly at any point of, the life. I have days when I wear makeup. I have days when I don't wear makeup. I go out with like the bare face, pigmentation and, shabby, dirty hair in a bun and like the funniest outfit you can ever imagine. I do have those days. And I have days when I, dress up, and that's for me, like whatever I do is for me. I don't do it to please people. I do it because I like it. And yeah, just love yourself. Love begins within yourself. So learn to love yourself and be kind to yourself. And also don't be self-obsessed. There's two differences. Love yourself, but not obsessed with yourself, that you treat other people wrong. So be kind, but stop comparing yourself to social media, people. And they are beautiful. I'm not saying, anything wrong. They are lovely. They work hard on themselves, and, whatever they are, they're awesome. And so are you. You don't have to be an influencer. You can be whatever you want to be, and you can love yourself. It's just be kind and speak from your heart. And if you want to be an influencer, you can be an influencer. If you want to be, something else, you can be that. I literally follow influencers who are like curvy and different kinds, like dog influencers and cat influencers and, curvy influencers, fashion mostly. But, I follow Vogue. I did follow the Kardashian sisters for a long time, but recently I got them off my Instagram because it's just not working for me. Like the idea of the perfect body it's okay, but no, I think it's too glamorous, and that's just not the reality of how the world works. With the money, yes, but not everybody can do that. But yeah, self-love and love others, be kind, and know that you are awesome and you need to keep going. Don't let anyone steal your thunder.
Beautiful. That's a great way to close this off on. Thank you so much, Sharon, for joining me and sharing everything that you did. I really appreciate it. This has been a great conversation, and time's honestly flown by. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing everything that you did. And for those of you who are listening and watching, thank you so much. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.